Stop. I can't take it anymore.
Oh, I do the live ones too. Yes, I know. I saw your act in the theater. You're really quite good.
Quite a certain harmful habit.
Stop it now, I need it.
Hello again. Welcome back. We are breaking up with RBS. This is episode 19, and I'm Tawny Santabria.
And I'm JDK Winnikin. We are here to debunk some junk. And let's get right back to it. Welcome to everybody who might be listening on Warm 106.9 in Seattle. Good morning. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, thank you for doing so. And be sure to check out the video feed of the show at our YouTube channel, Breaking Up with RBS. You can find that really easily. Just spell out the naughty word and you'll find it. And you can also join our Facebook group of the same name and get stuff in between sessions or in between episodes. So we've been talking about parenting. And last week we had Stacy on, a recent empty nester. And we really started digging into some stuff and we had to wait a week to get back to her. Welcome back, Stacy.
Thank you.
Thanks for waiting for
how's the week been?
The good news is nobody's home.
So you being left on a cliffhanger, you didn't have to do that in front of everybody.
No, I could have a gin and tonic and Triscuits and cheese and sleep late and think about it.
It's not a bad way to sit with BS stories necessarily. So that, all right. So, so let's just pick up right where we left off. And last week, Tawny, we finished up. You asked her if her kids had the same stories that Stacy articulated. And if you're not sure what we're talking about, everybody listening, go check out episode 18 and you'll get the context.
Yep.
So why don't we pick up right there?
Right. Yes. We talked last week. Stacy, you said, yeah, probably. They would have the same story that I do. Because we're trying to be sort of transparent about this. We're sort of putting it out there and not like pushing it underneath the rug or anything.
Well, and I thought about between last time and today, a clarifying question. So with the story as in their perspective of their upbringing or about relationship to mother or...
Yeah, the one thing that you didn't love was sort of not being able to be a part of and being, having to take this role on as like sort of the bad cop mom, where then their memories were that you were that in what they were sharing with each other.
Yes.
And so I think that was what I was wondering about in terms of, because you were, a little tough on yourself.
Yeah, a little.
Last week. And I guess I was just sort of wondering.
I just went in the car and cried.
I almost did too. I felt that stuff heavily. It was, okay.
Yeah. I guess I was wondering if their story would be as hard.
That you're the bad cop first and foremost.
I'll go back to what I said last week. I believe that they would.
Yeah.
I really believe that I think last week I talked about this idea that the slights that our parents do, that we sort of card catalog them.
Yeah.
And I think they all have their things. And, I think that the fact that I've explored how I behaved or how I dealt with stress or those kinds of things, I've acknowledged that I went through it. I've never previously explored why. So that's kind of the space that I'm in. However, I have explored and acknowledged the fact that, yeah, you didn't know. I was never abusive. I didn't hit the kids. I certainly was a yeller. And I think they felt like my mood would turn on a dime. So they don't recognize the person that I've become over time. And maybe that's the rub of parenting, is that where is person in parent?
Right. And we all do realize at some point that our parents are people.
Yes. Interestingly, I've already written my mother's eulogy. She is still very much alive as of this. And quick side note, very quick. I have a belief that writing your eulogy for your parents while they're still alive keeps it in a place of celebration and acknowledgement and the good stuff
Okay.
instead of a place of like romanticizing and, such grief and mourning. So,
Gotcha.
to keep it light with my mother's
Yeah.
eulogy, the 3 words that I have around it are superhuman, inhuman, and human. And that was the evolution of my relationship with my own mother.
Mhm.
I thought she was superhuman and could do no wrong.
Mhm.
She seemed to be everywhere. She had all the answers. She was the go-to person.
Mhm.
Then I went through a period later than most, actually, where I thought she was inhuman.
Mhm.
And then it's amazing what having children will do.
Yes.
She suddenly
Mhm.
was human.
Mhm.
And what's interesting in my situation is that this was reserved for my mother, not my father. So
The steps or the superhuman,
that view,
inhuman.
my dad was an aside.
Mhm.
And in
Okay.
some ways, Pete is an aside.
Mhm. Mhm.
Hmm. Your husband.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Okay.
Ooh.
Yes. Motherhood and fatherhood can be very different around the experiences as kids and the experiences even between mothers and fathers
Mhm.
also. Okay. So one of the other things we left off last week was how do you now stay connected, feel connected with the kids when they're reminiscing, or is that just off limits for you?
I will laugh about things. I mean, they're funny.
Yeah. Mhm.
There's shenanigans that happened. I love the fact that I've created a home space that
Mhm.
they are welcome in and their friends are welcome in. So our house was always that house so that the things and the people that were important to my kids became important to me.
Mhm.
And so seeing that and meeting them in that space without any kind of judgment, you know, Annie has tattoos. I'm not a tattoo person. I'm like, you do you. You know, Charlie and his gaming. He's now going into computer science. I'm like, good on you. Just all of these different things. So I try to connect by finding this intersecting level that I can approach their life with curiosity and learning
Mhm.
and having some fun. But also, I mean, I want them to come to me if they've got something going on.
Mhm.
Do they?
Yes, I would say they do.
Okay.
I would say that my hesitation is not because they don't come to me. It's because we have an embarrassment of riches, I would say, in our family that there hasn't been really monumental things, or maybe the yardstick by which we measure that is different for
Sure.
everyone.
Sure. Could be
Um,
monumental to them. They're bringing it forward.
right. And so, they definitely feel like they can come to me. I would say that if it is about me, then they struggle.
Because
Mhm.
Tawny, I just want to put out what comes to mind for me. Because you mentioned that the bad cop is how they would, on one hand, they would agree with your assessment.
Mhm.
That what you just described
Mhm.
sounds really like it would be a powerful part for them too. That would kind of go against this idea of you being solely the bad cop.
My parenting was a pendulum.
Okay.
Mhm.
So when they were little and it was like, "What do you want?" And I knew that I had fed them and that their diapers were clean and they had just gotten up from a nap or whatever it was, and so I knew that all their basic needs were met, and it was like, "What more do you need from me?"
Mm.
And that was always so overwhelming, the energy
Mhm.
that it required, and especially it was like dribbling a bunch of basketballs at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, you wanna be dribbled fast, you wanna be, like,
Mhm.
thrown this way. You just wanna sit on the sidelines
Mhm.
and whatever it was, and so juggling all of that was a huge amount of energy, and it was overwhelming, and my insecurities were just running rampant. I was overwhelmed, the whole thing. Then, around the time that we moved to Washington State, there was a bit of a pendulum shift. And one, It's like when you go to college, you can create your own identity again. It's like I
Mhm.
get a do-over
Mhm.
and I don't have to be that mom that, volunteers everywhere and says yes to everything or does this or does that. So that gave me some space to grow as a person. Uh, Pete and I had to come together since we moved across country. So as a couple, that gave us that dynamic. So the pendulum started to switch. And that's why I say, in some ways, they're like, who is this mother
Mhm.
that, like I had all their friends over and taught them how to put a condom on a banana.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
that
Okay.
mom.
So why are you still so hard on yourself?
Well,
Yeah.
because duh.
Well,
Like, but seriously.
No, I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know.
Okay. Okay.
I'm as I said, thanks in part to listening to your show.
Mhm.
It's been helpful because even when I talked last week about the incident that had happened over Thanksgiving weekend, and
Mhm.
I knew almost immediately that like, oh, okay, you're having a
Mhm.
little temper tantrum and like a little narrative
there's a
here.
story there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I was almost able to head it off. I was just a few minutes late.
Mhm.
And so I'm trying,
Mhm.
or I'm trying to something that I do occasionally is if I don't get a response that I want, then I'll try to say, so based on I'm using Pete as my example. Pete, based on your lack of response and your unwillingness to participate in this conversation that I'm having in my head, the story that I'm telling myself is that you're annoyed with me and that I somehow offended your sensibilities and blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
And, I'm like, could you let me know if like, am I warm? Am I cold? Like, and
Mhm.
I talk a lot about that with Pete. I have this thing that I always say, could you just let me off the hook? Now,
Mm.
I'm sure there's so much to unpack there too,
Mhm.
that it's up to somebody else to let me off the hook. However,
Mm.
if it's not about you, then please tell me that it's not about me so that I can like
Mhm.
stop.
Which is a communication point.
Mhm. What if it's never about you?
It's always about me.
What if it's about
And
Mm.
there, boom.
what if it's about the other person? Like what if, right? Like so often we decide that somebody's reaction or what they are doing or what they're not doing or how they're doing it or is about us. And most of the time it's
Mm.
about themselves.
Yeah.
Yes. But with me, it's different.
It's those barriers of story keep flying up. Boop, boop.
There's another one.
Yeah, keep running into it.
Uh-huh.
Right.
But the awareness of it is there. That's a big deal. I mean, just right,
Mhm.
recognizing the stories. It's the advice you give everybody every week.
Noticing stories,
Noticing,
yes, really
yeah.
important. And if though we've got to check in with everybody around us to have, let us off the hook, that's going to be quite exhausting and
For
not
both.
even actually real. Because you don't need that. You don't need to be let off the hook. You just need to be you, Stacy.
Yeah. So who cares if I talk about something that's inappropriate that embarrasses Pete?
Right.
Well,
Like,
'cause
okay,
isn't it up
so
to Pete to say something?
Isn't that Pete's deal if it embarrasses Pete?
Yeah. Why do you got to fix that?
Yeah.
Because I've edited myself my entire life.
Right.
There you go.
Right. Right.
There
And
you
what
go.
if you stopped doing
What
it?
if you did?
Oh,
That's a scary thought.
Is it? But you're
But is it
smiling while you
really?
say it.
I
It can't be
know.
that scary because you're
I
you're
love
grinning
it.
like crazy, right?
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine?
Right.
Well, that's more important. Can you imagine? I mean, because
No. And I will say I'm getting closer there.
Mhm.
Having my own radio show where I get to talk about what I want to talk about.
Mhm.
it's called "Don't Ask Me to Talk." By the way,
Oh,
Yes.
You
thank
look it
you.
up. Listen,
You-
it's
Mhm.
good stuff.
Yeah, thank you for that. I bring it up not for the plug, but the plug's appreciated.
Mhm.
Because it's an opportunity for me to talk. I have joked in the past that I do this hour-long show because I just wanted my mother to listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
and my family to listen to me. And the ironic thing is, I think I have like 5 listeners, and 3 of them are my mother and my 2 brothers.
So it's working.
You have more than that. So it's working. Your goals have been met.
So
That's
You've
incredible.
captured your audience.
right?
Wow.
So now I can now manifest something bigger.
Well, it sounds like what you're saying is that it's you're starting to carve out that space for you to
Yes.
do these things, and that's one of the avenues through which you
And
do it.
having fun. And
and not having to answer to somebody else for how you do it.
And I have a daily mantra that I say, and it's a whole long one, but the last part of it is about helping me have the courage to be seen, heard, and successful. Because those are the things that I find that I really struggle with. Being seen, I'm not thin enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not enough. Being heard, the things that I want to say, my opinions, all of those things. And then being successful, I have Tanya Hardinged myself for years.
Mm-hmm. Right. And BS stories,
Oh,
right?
Oh, yeah.
And the reality is, it's like when we're aware and present and soft in our bodies, we don't have to push for any of that. And what comes out of that typically is,
tears.
well, but real. It
Real.
typically is real. And
Emotions,
that's what's
yeah.
going to get us seen, heard, and successful is this sense of being able to be real with who we are. And that doesn't require editing. And it doesn't, because real with who we are is usually a good place to be.
Sorry, go ahead.
We're not reactive. We're not protected. We're not doing all the things that might be hurtful to other people when we're actually present, soft, and real with who we are.
Mhm.
So we can trust that and express it.
And feel it and not have to be let off the hook.
Yeah.
Well, and the whole concept of not comparing myself or editing myself for others or whatever it is, it goes back to something that Tawny taught me. I'm a grape. Or a blueberry. Rather.
Blueberry.
I'm
You're
a
a
blueberry.
blueberry.
Yeah, I don't think you're a grape, you're a blueberry.
I'm a blueberry.
Mhm.
And, just like that is the skin that I choose to be in. And that if I try to be something else.
Yeah. It reminds me of something a friend of mine said to me in a very different context the other day where a friendship that she had ended. She'd ended it. And she said, I'm exactly where I chose to be.
Mhm.
Because I said to her, oh, I'm sorry about that.
Mhm.
She said, oh no. She said,
Yeah.
I'm exactly where I chose to be. And I've been reflecting on that quite a bit.
Mhm.
And it's coming up in this conversation is
Mhm.
where do you choose to be? You putting yourself out there on the radio show
Mhm.
is one of them. But I keep coming back to if that connection with ourself means that the pain that you feel or that you felt over the weekend, that incident at Thanksgiving, that's okay for you to feel if you're connected with yourself. You don't have to have somebody else let you off the hook. You're allowed to feel sad. You're allowed to have the headache. It's what's it around? Is it
Mhm.
around a story or is it around how you're actually feeling? And I don't know. I think there's plenty for you not to be hard on yourself about, I think, when it comes to
Mhm.
this.
Mhm. Yeah.
Probably, but what would I do with all that brain space?
Well, what would you
You
what would you
wouldn't
do with
have
all
a
the heart space?
headache. You wouldn't have a headache.
Well, what
That's true.
would happen with the heart space? Now, if we're
Right.
talking about being in the body, if you let those emotions in as the reality of what they are, going all the way back to everything you described, like your family and all how you grew up and the messages you got, you felt all that, and that processes itself out and flows through, what's that going to open up for the heart space that then changes what ends up in the head space? Because that's what happens to me
Mhm.
quite a bit.
And what would have been different in that moment where you said to yourself, basically, I can't keep up. And then a comment was made that you took as, sort of defensive, right? That you
Mhm.
needed to go protect yourself
Mhm.
from the family, right? What would have been different there? Who knows, right? But certainly there would have been something different there
Right.
if beforehand you allowed yourself just to keep up with them without this story of I can't keep up. And that could be, it could look, keeping up could look like a lot of different ways, but not the story of not keeping up typically is limiting.
Yeah, because if you're telling yourself you can't keep up, you're not going to keep up.
Okay, you guys. Something just came up for me.
Okay.
Wow, this is in wanting to keep up. Am I also trying to compete?
Good question. Yeah. What does keep up really mean? Exactly. Yeah.
Whoa. Wait,
Mhm.
did you guys already know that?
We we
Oh, man.
we knew something was there,
We
right?
knew
Like,
something was there. The
yeah.
specifics, I
Mhm.
mean, we can't guess at, right? The specifics are going to be unique to you. It's
Mhm.
more important that you got that
Mhm.
rather than we
Yeah.
got it.
And then if that's
That's
it, then what does that, what does that mean? Is that needed? Is that,
And is that a story?
yeah.
Are you really competing with your kids? I assume you mean your kids.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I
And
mean,
is that what you want to do?
no.
Right.
Right, of course.
Mhm.
Right.
No.
Mhm.
Oh, great.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing, though, and again, Tawny, if I'm steering off course here, course correct me.
Mhm.
You realizing that doesn't have to be a problem.
Mhm.
If that's the reality that you're feeling, like, oh man, maybe I'm competing. Maybe that not feeling good, I get. At the same time, that you realizing that doesn't have to be a problem that you need to get through and get over and explain and figure out where that came from. I think based on the story that you've laid out for us, if you lay that out in more detail or even less detail, I think people will be able to go, oh, okay, this is how Stacy got to feeling as she does today. That's not a surprise necessarily. Doesn't have to be a problem that you ended up there.
And I don't think that I'm trying to compete, like, to be, the things that they are in life. I think it comes down to competing for attention and
Oh.
validation,
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Ooh, that's a
Yeah.
big realization.
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Mhm. Mhm.
This
Yeah.
just in.
Yeah.
Stacy's mind blown.
Yeah.
Because I don't need to be a special ed teacher, or I don't need to be
Mhm.
proficient in computer science. I don't need to be wonderful at accounting or finance or fashion or any of the things that my kids are interested in. They all have their own interests, talents, gifts, etc. It may just be the validation and attention that they get in being able to share those things.
What do you need validated from them?
Mhm.
Everything.
Like
Uh,
you're a good mom,
I mean, that wouldn't stink.
that you're a good listener, that you care
Oh, I'm
about
a
them.
terrible listener.
That
Well,
you're
that's not fair. I am a good listener. I just don't I don't think they think that I'm listening, but I'm listening all the time, and I'm especially listening to things they're not saying.
Mm.
So you need to be validated that you're a good mom and a good listener, or is there anything else in there that you need validated?
There's so much, Tawny.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, I think it's in the same way that, you give your kids validation of, great job on this, or, you're wonderful at this or whatever. I'm guessing that I didn't have that same thing. And so now I need that, and I need that validation. I need to be I need that positivity. However, you taught me something else. The thing that you taught me is that it shows up for them in different ways than I need it. So what I need is them to say, "You is good, you is kind, you is special, you is smart." And by the way, that was a reference to the movie Help.
Mhm.
And the way that they're showing me is that they hang out with me. They spend
Yes.
time. They call me. They text me. They ask me my opinion. They introduce their friends to me, like in
Mhm.
so many other better, bigger ways.
Mhm. No.
And it's really so much more powerful. But because I guess it's not what I want, I
It's
dismiss it.
it's what the story says she needs, right? That's the criteria, is the story. They're giving you plenty if you're able to see them for who they are, but that of course takes being Tawny, right, present with ourselves first to recognize that.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So
Huh.
so
Huh.
is that can you validate you as opposed to needing in those same ways that you're looking for your kids to validate you? Can you do that for you so that they can be free to show their appreciation and care and love and validation to you in the way that they do it?
I mean, yes. Yes. Yes, I can.
Does that make sense?
Oh,
do you
it
f- do you
completely
s-
makes sense.
And not just in your head, but can you feel that?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
And it's simultaneously freeing, and it's simultaneously I'm like,
Sure.
you know,
I can get
the
that.
rewiring and the whole idea of talking positively to myself and giving myself validation. I imagine that it's going to come out like beep, beep, boop, beep, 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 boop, because I don't know how to use a language that I'm going to understand.
And it may not even come out as words.
That's
We've talked a lot about that softening and softening your eyes and tongue, smiling on the inside, sinking into your belly.
Yeah.
That's where we connect with ourselves and really get in touch with who we are. And just even in that act, we're validating ourselves. We're centering and grounding ourselves for who we are, our potential, who we are in this moment or any other moment. And so then we're not needing it to be in words from another person, and especially our kids.
Yeah, that's a lot to demand.
And it might not be as much as you think. Because, that's the thing is not having to put all the mental words to it, that we need verbal validation. It is an interesting thing. It's hard to explain. We're running out of time.
Were you saying it's a lot to demand of your kids or
Yes.
of you? Yes. Yes.
Oh,
it's
okay.
a lot to demand of
Okay.
your kids.
I misunderstood that.
Yep.
I misunderstood that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it is because they're different people
Right.
in a shocking development.
Shocking development.
They are different and themselves.
At some point it would be really interesting to talk to one of your kids and see what we get out of this. We'll have to talk about it a little more, but right now unfortunately we have to wrap this up.
Oh boy. Okay.
It's crazy. Stacy, thank you for being so open and honest and transparent with us about this. And we really hope it was beneficial. I know it was beneficial for me. And hope for all of you listening it was beneficial for you. Really appreciate you joining us on this episode of Breaking Up with RBS. We will see you next time for the next episode. And until then, I am JDK Winnikin.
And I'm Tawny Santabria.
And thanks for joining us. We will catch you later. Thanks, everyone.
And I'm full of BS.
Stop. I can't take it anymore.
Oh, I do the live ones too. Yes, I know. I saw your act in the theater. You're really quite good.